5 main areas. First, I want to talk about the diplomas. Again, what we offer with the IB diploma and what we offer with the StGIS diploma, what that translates into for university options. I want to talk about the structure of support for university and careers guidance here at the school, when we start the university and careers guidance sessions, how we guide our students through that, what roles mentor tutors, who's responsible for what, that sort of thing. We'll talk about the responsibilities, not just of students, but what I actually do, what our mentor tutors do, what we expect of our students, and what you can do as parents. And go through the general university timeline, kind of the checkpoints that we're expecting along the way, as well as a little bit of an overview of the resources that we use. So those are the key things I want to go through tonight. And let's start with the diploma itself. For those of you who are here at the Introduction to the IB Diploma Program session a couple of weeks ago, you'll recognize this slide. But just as a reminder, the IB Diploma Program is an internationally recognized broad curriculum that goes through 6 main subjects and the core of the IB as well. Its focus is on developing critical thinking and global awareness, and it includes the core subjects of theory of knowledge, the extended essay, and CAS, or creativity, activity, and service. Each of those core elements are fundamental to the program, and they are what help to prepare our students to be successful at university and beyond, really. Many university admissions counselors reflect that the extended essay and specifically the theory of knowledge course are 2 things that really help to develop and help the IB students excel when they go on to university as well. Assessment of the IB diploma program is both internal. We do some assessments here that are moderated by the IB, and of course external, and these are the exams that come at the end of the program, typically in May of grade 12. From those exams, both the internal assessments and the external assessments, students get some points. Those points are out of 45, and based off of if they've successfully achieved a diploma and how many points they get in which subjects, they now have access to universities across the globe. So the IB is internationally recognized. It allows access to those universities everywhere. Subject selection and making sure that you've chosen the subjects that are interesting for you and what you want to do beyond that is a very important thing. We guide for that basically starting in grade 10, typically around November to December, but more details on that have already been shared in that previous session. For a bit of clarity then, if you were to compare this against the Austrian Matura, the Swiss Maturity, for example, or A-levels, there's a bit difference between the International Baccalaureate Diploma and each of these national focused education systems or diploma systems, if you will. Typically, there's a more narrow focus with those other types of systems. They can be perceived as a bit less demanding because there's fewer subjects, and the assessment is very, very heavily geared toward the external exams without the internal assessments. In terms of university recognition, more often than not, these types of diplomas are more specific to the country in which they originate, or at least within the continent that's nearby. So just for clarity's sake, at St. Gilgen International School, we only do the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, but we also offer our own StGIS diploma. It is accredited by the Council of International Schools and the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and it's effectively comparable to a US high school diploma. What that means is most students who come through our school are going to be doing both the IB diploma and the StGIS diploma. And when they finish their time here, they will have effectively both of these diplomas. More often than not, what allows them access to universities is going to be that IB diploma. However, if the full diploma is not the right pathway for a student, if we're discovering that for whatever reason it's not supporting them in their goals, we may opt for that student to go on to the IB certificate pathway. That basically means that the student is not doing the full 6 subjects plus the core. They do fewer subjects, but they don't get the full IB diploma. But they would get our StGIS diploma and certificates from the IB that say you've completed the economics higher level course, for example, with a level 5. You've completed the maths analysis and approaches course with a level 6, etc. So you get specific course certificates along with the StGIS diploma. And it's important to know that that can also be a pathway to university. It's not only the IB diploma that allows access to universities. There's a difference in terms of how they're received. The IB diploma is pretty widely received. Almost every university will look at that and accept students. The StGIS diploma plus the IB certificates limits a few more options worldwide, but it can still be a pathway to university. So at our school, we don't specifically focus on one direction or the other. We don't only advise for example, the UK, or just for Austria, or just for the US, or something like this. The opportunity that we have, and some might say the challenge we have, is trying to advise and coach students for whatever their pathway might entail. We've had students who have gone on to attend universities in the US, in Canada, the UK, all throughout Europe, in China, through Australia, Japan. We've had students go all over the world. And so when we think about all the universities that are out there, we are effectively trying to advise students for whatever is going to be the best fit for them. Very often when we're talking with students about their university choices, we don't necessarily float the big names or the top ranked schools right away, but really try to ask the question, what makes a good university experience for you? What is it that you are looking for from a university? Are you looking for one-to-one instruction? Are you looking for a closer relationship from a professor? Do you want a close community? Do you want to have a higher chance of going from first year university to second university? Are you interested in employment opportunities right after university, or possibly exchange years where you do 1 year abroad and come back? All those things factor into creating a good university experience for a student. And one of the biggest, most important messages I could give right now to all parents now is the big name schools can be a great option, or they may not be the best option for your child. And it's really important to help figure out what are the strengths of your child and what might be the best choice for them as well. So how do we do that? Well, effectively, it's like this. My role as our university and careers guidance counselor is to give overviews of, one, our approach to university and careers guidance. And a lot of that happens in summit sessions, beginning as early as grade 9, but mainly in grades 10, 11, and 12. Students then interact with their mentor tutors. They do research through this platform called UniFrog, and UniFrog helps us organize our university research, and I'll show a bit of that soon. It gives more detailed conversations about their strengths, their long-term goals, and looking at realistic options, because the mentor tutor is squarely placed to see how the student's performing in their courses and how that might relate to their long-term goals for universities. So for example, on the IB diploma program, if a child is earning, let's say, 30 points on the IB diploma program, it's probably not appropriate for them to be looking at universities that require a minimum of 39 or 40. And we need to be more realistic and guide that conversation about finding the right university fit for them. I then get back involved with supporting with applications and the specific mechanics of getting them to their universities. And then students themselves are actually responsible for facilitating the applications, writing their own applications, logging into university application portals, that sort of thing, and making sure that they have gone through the specifics themselves, but I guide along the way. Effectively, the responsibilities look like this. As a university and careers guidance counselor, I do summit sessions about universities for our students. I give guidance in terms of how to find research. I coach students in terms of asking the right questions about what makes a good university experience for them. I do one-to-one meetings with them. I'll do specific support on applications, like giving feedback on personal statements or college application essays, guiding them toward entrance exams if they need to do those. And I'll write the official academic reference for anybody who's going to university directly. That reference is often informed by subject teachers as well. The student is responsible for researching university options, and that means asking all those questions about what makes a good university experience for me. It's up to the student to engage with our university support system, that's UniFrog, and to engage with university visits. Roughly every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a representative from a university come to campus and talk about their university. So that's one way that they can get involved in that. Very frequently, in fact, at least 3 times throughout the academic year, there's some form of university fair, whether that's virtual or if that's in person. And so it's up to the student to engage in those. I share that information out so students have access to it. It's just up to them to take advantage of it. It's also important then when a student knows they are applying to a specific university and they understand the application requirements, that student then needs to approach the reference contributors or the recommenders who are going to be writing on their behalf. So it's up to the students to say, actually, I have a great relationship with this teacher or this teacher, and they know how I work really well. I will approach them and ask, hey, would you be willing to write a letter of recommendation for me or a contribution to the official academic reference? And ultimately, it's up to the student to identify which particular application portal they will need as they apply to their universities of choice. If I flash back to that opportunity, you can see why this is so important that the students choose what's important for them. And as a result, the application requirements are going to be different for each of those universities and based off of where those universities are located. The requirements to apply in the UK, for example, are different to the requirements to how to apply in Spain or Netherlands or Austria or Germany or Italy or the US, etc. And not just the application requirements, but the timelines and all of that stuff as well. So knowing where would be a good opportunity for the student is one of the most important things that they can be looking at in the years leading up to their applications. So how do we construct a university and careers guidance program? It effectively starts like this. Before the IB diploma program, so this is in grades 9 and 10 here, we do different personality tests that help to identify strengths in the students. We introduce university requirements. So it's important to know if a student is considering US universities, for example, they look at academic transcripts all the way from grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, not just the finishing grades that somebody might have at grade 12. Versus if they're looking at a German university, they're only going to look at your exiting exams. So it's important that students get a general idea of those different university requirements. And of course, then we also talk about which subjects they might want to take on the IB diploma program to support where they want to go for university. For example, if somebody wants to go into an engineering degree, they really need to be considering physics and chemistry in their IB diploma program subject options. Or if they're interested in applying to a specific country, they may have other specific requirements from the IB diploma program subjects. So we try to guide on that before the IB diploma program. Once students are on the diploma program, we've got term 1 of year 1, and it's mainly about researching universities and seeing what's out there. Term 2, I really encourage students to attend open days, to visit universities if possible, either during the school year or whenever we have our holidays as well. Universities often have open days, so it's about finding that schedule and getting to those. The more that students can actually go and visit the university, the better, because then they get a better feel for what that university is like. Also in term 2, students are starting to do their extended essays, and those extended essays really help them focus on their interests and their strengths. And a lot of times extended essays can be the basis of a university interview if they need to do an interview to get into that university. Also, toward the end of IBDP year 1, we want to shortlist universities, try to get them focusing more on maybe 5 or 10 universities worldwide that they want to go to. Choose their application tracks then. Let's say they've chosen, 3 universities in the UK, 2 in Netherlands, 1 in Italy, and 2 in Spain. Well, that's 4 separate application portals that they need to be signing on to. So we try to guide them on that as well. And there are certain courses and certain universities that will require an entrance exam. You might be familiar with the Standardized Aptitude Test or the SAT. It's a really important test for US universities, and more European universities are taking this on as well, like Bocconi University, for example, requires the SAT. Or they also do their own Bocconi test. But basically what I'm saying is there might be some entrance examinations that students need to do before they go to that university. So we try to guide on that by the end of IBDP year 1 so that students know where to plan for it, when they can take the exam, and how to prepare for it. Over the summer then, it's about drafting some of those application materials, getting a first draft of their personal statement, getting a first draft of, for example, a letter of recommendation, or if they're thinking about a specific pathway, how are they going to be doing that particular entrance exam so that they're prepared for it. Then when it comes to grade 12, we effectively have 3 windows to support the actual applications themselves. Depending on where a student is choosing to go, they might fit into either one of these windows. There's the early window, which is coming to a close now for our IBDP Year 2 students. This is for students who are considering courses at, for example, Oxford or Cambridge, or if they're looking at medicine-based universities or medicine courses or veterinarian courses at universities in the UK, they have to apply by October 15th. There's also the early action and the early decision pathways at the US universities where applications have opened now and they remain open for the next couple of months, where students are effectively committing to that university if they do an early decision application, and therefore they have to have that in much earlier. And then there's some European universities who open their applications as early as September. And so some of our students might need support on those applications. Universities like IE in Spain or Bocconi in Italy are two examples of universities that already have their applications open. And therefore, we need to support our students who are doing those ones as well. The early window is also when a lot of those entrance examinations take place. Toward the end of October is when you're going to see a lot of the Cambridge-based assessments, the LNAT, for example, the UCAT, the Thinking Skills Assessment or the TSA assessment. Each of these are offered typically in that October time, so we want to make sure that students are prepared for them if they need to take those assessments to get into university, as well as their IB diploma itself. Then there's the regular window. Most applications are going to be due in January, and that's typically right after we come back from our winter holidays. So the best way that we can offer support is in that regular window between November and December. So students will come in if they're applying to a US university where the deadline's the 1st of January, and we are always on holidays then. Or if they're applying to most UK universities with a deadline in mid-January, then that regular window of support, November to December, is when we go through all the application mechanics together and make sure that they're prepared for that. Then our spring window is effectively from January into April, and that's the majority of our EU universities. Most of those EU universities have their applications either in that window itself or after the results have been published by the IB in July. So this window is mainly about offering that support for those students who are applying then. I hope you can kind of see it's quite a complex structure of trying to support our students. And again, so much this comes down to them doing some effective research to know what they need to do to apply and knowing which universities they want to go to. Now, it's not just about applying to universities. After they've submitted their application, we still continue to offer university guidance, helping them with regard to responding to offers that they might receive from universities. Those offers might be something like an unconditional offer, which says, regardless of what you get on the IB diploma program, we want you to come to our university. Or what is more often the case, they get conditional offers, which say, right, we will accept you if you get these grades at the end of the diploma program. Or you might get unsuccessful, where you say you've applied, but you don't meet the criteria for us, and we weren't going to carry this application further. Nonetheless, students have to respond to those offers, and they have to say what's going to be their firm choice or their safety choice. Some students might need to do a civil service because they're in Austria, for example, they need to do a civil service, or they might be doing a gap year, and so they might defer their entry as well. So they'll accept the university, but they'll say, I'm not going to start right away, I'll start next year. And it's also important that we guide them in terms of the sort of extra admin about university, like where are they going to live? How, do they have their visas sorted out for that? What sort of travel needs to take place to get there? Are there specific start dates that they need to be aware of with regard to how they're going to get their diploma and get that over there? The diploma program from the IB also offers support, like, for example, the IB will do a results service, which means if a student's applying, for example, here in Europe, many times those European universities need the results of the diploma as early as middle of July. And so the IB will send results directly to the university before we actually get the diploma here at the school to send that to students. That can be a really important thing if students have to have that application finished before, let's say, August or September, because we won't have the actual diplomas in place yet. There's other things like legalization of a diploma. Certain countries and their universities require the IB diploma to be legalized as well. So there are many universities in Italy, for example, that require legalization. Or there's some universities, for example, in Albania, that require the apostille stamp as well. So they need legalization and they need another stamp that goes to certify this diploma. So there's different mechanics here, and basically in grade 12, we work through what those might be. And then there's, of course, the completion of the diploma, the results where the students confirm their places and they receive their diploma typically in September. And then they're able to go on to the universities after that. There's a lot of ways that they can learn about universities. I mentioned the UniFrog platform, and I'm going to show that to us here in just a moment. But as I mentioned before, we try to get university representatives here at St. Gilgen as often as we can, approximately one visit every couple of weeks, normally on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's typically a fair style that we have during break. So the university representative will be outside of the cafe. They'll have some information on their university, and students can just walk up and talk informally with that person. Even if it's a representative from a university that the student says, oh, I'm definitely not going to go there, it's really important for the students to actually talk with them because they can still give good insights into what university life is like, or application materials, or helping them make sure that the student is ready for that university as well. And those sessions are open to any student, regardless of their age. It's not just for example, grade 11 or grade 12 students. We have to be a bit opportunistic about that. Sometimes it's a bit challenging getting different university representatives to come all the way up to St. Gilgen. So what I'm often doing is I'm noticing when people are traveling through Salzburg, and I try to invite them over to St. Gilgen as well. And so we are able to get many different representatives, but sometimes we don't get a wide representation of them. This is why it's really important to get into the university fairs. We have virtual fairs, often provided by the Council of International Schools or UniFrog. And then, of course, we have some in-person fairs that take place. For example, in Munich, there's an in-person university fair. In Vienna, there's another in-person university fair. And these, if students want to go to those, I'm very happy to authorize that they miss some of their lessons so that they can go to those particular university fairs and learn more about the schools. So that's kind of the broad overview of how this really looks. What are the next steps for our students? Well, really, I try to get them to ask these 4 effective questions. And those of you who are familiar with this model, you know the Ikigai concept, which basically is to find your purpose, you need to ask these 4 questions. What's something that you love? What's something that the world needs? What's something that you could get paid for? And something that you're really great at. The intersection of those 4 areas helps to define your purpose. And so I try to pull these questions from our students and help them think about what those are. From there, we can shortlist universities and courses, determine entry requirements, confirm if there's pre-coursework, visit universities, etc. But ultimately, it's these 4 questions that really guide it. And so I try to make sure that our mentor tutors are speaking with students about this as well, or one-to-one meetings with me with students, we do this also. Now, you can imagine if I'm trying to coach every student one-to-one on each of these questions, that can be a bit overwhelming and sometimes less effective. And this is why the supporting platform is so useful. UniFrog is a really, really useful platform that helps students understand what's out there for them and where their best interests might be. There's also the university section in our library, which has test materials like SAT and ACT prep books, other Cambridge assessments like the MCAT, LNAT, or ELAT, how to prepare for those, and then different university prospectuses that universities will send to us, and then students can look at those and find what is this about, what's that university about. We also offer many, many meetings with our students so that they can meet with mentor tutors. And I intentionally meet with all of our grade 12 students in this term. I was scheduling those meetings to check in with them and make sure that they are on track for what they want to do. I want to pivot very briefly over to UniFrog for just a second and show you how useful this platform can be. Give me just a second to log in and then share my screen. Over there. And Woody, I'll ask for your support in just a moment to be sure that you can see this screen. I just need to stop sharing and reshare a separate one. All right, Woody, can you please confirm, can you see the screen that says Unifrog on it?
Yeah, I can see Unifrog. Hello, John.
Great, thank you very much. So I just want to take us very briefly through this platform. This is what our students see when they log into the platform as well. And ultimately, they get their overview of how they're doing on the applications portal. And they often get this sort of wheel that shows here's how much work you've done, how you're getting on with it. You always get ideas here about what to do next. But the most important and useful thing, especially for anybody who's here in maybe grade 9 or grade 10, you're a grade 9 or 10 parent, this can be a super useful thing for helping to prepare students for where they want to go. We have tools, for example. Each of these quizzes are things that help students identify their strengths, their interest profile, for example, or their personality profile, or their work environments profile. These are all things that help students identify what would be a good career that fits my strengths and my own interests. Over here on the searching side, you can search for very specific universities. So if you know, oh, I definitely want to go to the UK, or I definitely want to go to Canada or Asia, you can look directly for universities on that side, and it's going to organize it a bit easier for you there. Where we spend a lot of our time in the University and Careers Guidance is over here at the Exploring Pathways. We can explore by career, for example, or by a specific subject. So let's say a student says, well, I want to be an engineer. Then we could look for the careers library in engineering. Or what's more often the case, students come to me and they don't know what they want to do, but they know that they like a few subjects. So like, actually, I really like my languages subjects, but I don't really know what I want to do with that. We can go into the subjects library to get a better idea of how that could work. I'm going to dive there for just a second to show you how this works. If I'm in my subjects library, if I scroll down just a bit, I can search by a specific keyword. So if I'm very interested in sports science, for example, I might just type that in. Or I could search by school subjects that I like the most. Or I can also search by different earnings and outcomes. If I want to find out how much money does this thing make, or what's the outcome that's going to happen here, how useful is this particular subject in the economy. Or if I don't know all of that, I can also just go by subject area. So if I say, look, I really don't know what I want to do, but I like maths, for example, or I like the humanities, I can search for subjects in that regard, or by characteristics, or by themes or skills. So you can see there's lots of ways that students can go about exploring their strengths and what might be the best fit for them. Let's say that I decide I don't need to do that stuff, but I can come up here and I can just go off of this keyword that I'm most interested in. As I search, I can then get an idea of here's some particular courses that are focused on that thing that I just was interested in, like sports science, for example. When I read that profile, first off, I'm going to get a video of a couple of people who are studying that particular subject, so I can learn more about them. I'll get an overview of what that subject is like at university. And I get a lot more detail in terms of like what careers are available for that, and then specifically what it takes to get into that particular course at university. I can do other things like, for example, what's the personal statement of a successful person who has gotten to study that subject at university? What did their reference look like? Or what are some specific things that I should be aware of pertaining to that subject should I get an interview or some other way to talk about it? I can then start to explore that subject at universities. So there's some know-how guides that really help me understand more about that subject. They say, oh, if you're going to study, let's say, law, here's what you definitely need to know. Or I could also look at other related career profiles if I want to understand more about that career. Let's say I decide I want to study this and I want to figure out where I can study this in these different countries. It's automatically going to now filter this down for me so that I can see where in these countries that subject is offered. And I can select a few of these, for example, and then I get a brief overview of what those programs are. First off, where they're located, as well as what the overall program looks like. So how long is the program? I get direct links to, for example, their website, their finance page, the contact details, the email addresses of the admissions counselors, etc. So if I have specific questions about, am I choosing the right like IB subjects to be sure that I can study this at university? Here's a great place to go for that. Further down here, you can see more stuff about the program, the university, what it takes to get in, if they have IB specific requirements like certain subjects or scores they have to do, that's all available there. Things like how much is it going to cost to live there, how much it's going to cost for the university, how long is the program, etc. And a little bit more of a specific video on that too. Now I share all this, and I know I go through that relatively quickly now, but this platform is super useful, as you could probably tell. The best thing you can do as a parent is chat with your students and just say, hey, show me your UniFrog account and let's look through this together. Let's talk about the subjects you're interested in. Let's talk about the careers of interest for you and what might be a good fit for you. Now, grade 9 students will be given access to a UniFrog account halfway through this academic year, and grade 10 students will have, if they were here in grade 9, then they'll still have access to it. If they're new to grade 10, I'm uploading those currently, and they should be able to have access within the next couple of weeks. And that basically means that they could then check those out and get more information that way as well. So that's UniFrog in a brief overview. And you can see why we choose to use that particular platform. It brings a whole lot of value to students researching and knowing what they need to do for the overall program itself. So in general, that's our overview of the University and Careers guidance structure that we have here at the school. Everything from how we do the diplomas, how those are accepted at universities, the structure of support, the responsibilities of students, myself, the mentor tutors, our timeline, and our resource in terms of how we use that. That's going to bring my section of this to a particular close. But of course, as you have more questions, and I know many questions about universities come up, I invite you to email me. You can see my details there, or you can always come to meet me face-to-face. We can schedule a meeting and discuss, or even right now, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take some. Oh yeah, there you go.
How do you